They told me I wasn't marriage material, too plain, too poor, too nothing for someone like him. But when my wedding photos went viral and crashed Instagram servers worldwide, those same people were begging for invitations. Want to know how a girl they called basic ended up marrying into one of the wealthiest families in America? I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The fluorescent lights of Henderson Community College's cafeteria buzzed overhead as I sat alone at my usual corner table, picking at the discount meal I'd scraped together with my food stamps card. My name is Riley Brennan, and back then, I was invisible. Just another scholarship student trying to survive in a world that seemed designed to remind me I didn't belong. Oh my God, is that Riley? The voice cut through the cafeteria noise like a knife. I didn't need to look up to know it was Peyton Ashford, surrounded by her usual entourage of designer-clad followers, still wearing those Goodwill specials I see. I kept my eyes on my tray, my fingers tightening around my plastic fork. This wasn't new. For the past 2 years at Henderson, I'd been the target of Peyton's cruel entertainment. My secondhand clothes, my worn-out backpack with the broken zipper, my outdated phone with the cracked screen, everything about me screamed poverty in a school where most students drove cars worth more than my mother's annual salary. You know what I heard? Peyton continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy as she approached my table. Her friends giggled behind perfectly manicured hands. I heard Riley actually thinks she has a chance with someone. Can you imagine? As if anyone would want to marry that. My cheeks burned, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of a response. This particular torture session had started 3 weeks ago when I'd been paired with Devin Martinez for a sociology project. Devin was kind, funny, and treated me like a human being, which apparently was enough to spark Peyton's jealousy and mockery. Seriously, though, Riley, Peyton leaned against my table, her Cartier bracelet clinking against the surface. You need to understand something about your place in this world. Girls like you, you're not marriage material, you're not even dating material. You're the kind of girl men feel sorry for, maybe help with homework, but never take home to meet their families. Her words stabbed deeper than she knew. My father had abandoned us when I was 7, leaving my mother to raise 3 kids on a housekeeper's wages. I'd grown up watching her scrub other people's toilets, clean other people's mansions, always exhausted, always worried about money. The phrase marriage material had haunted my childhood, whispered by relatives, implied by my father's desertion, reinforced by every romantic rejection I'd ever experienced. What's the matter? Peyton smirked. Cat got your tongue? Or are you just finally accepting reality? Leave her alone, Peyton. The voice was male, authoritative, and completely unexpected. I looked up to see a tall figure approaching, someone I'd never seen before on campus. He had dark hair, sharp features, and an air of quiet confidence that seemed to silence the entire cafeteria. Peyton's expression shifted from cruel amusement to desperate charm in seconds. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. We were just having a friendly conversation. I'm Peyton Ashford. My father owns Ashford Industries. Perhaps you've heard of us. The stranger's gray eyes barely glanced at her before settling on me. You dropped this. He held out a library book I hadn't even realized had fallen from my bag, a worn copy of Victorian literature I'd been analyzing for my English class. Thank you, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper as I took the book. Interesting choice. George Eliot? He smiled slightly. Middlemarch or Daniel Deronda? Middlemarch, I answered, surprised he recognized the author. For my British literature course. Excellent novel. The social commentary on marriage and ambition is particularly relevant. He extended his hand. I'm Connor Westfield. I shook his hand, aware that Peyton was staring at us with barely concealed fury. Riley Brennan. Well, Riley Brennan, I'm actually here looking for the administration building. I'm transferring this semester and I'm completely lost. His smile was genuine, lacking the pity or condescension I'd come to expect from interactions with wealthy students. Before I could respond, Peyton inserted herself between us. "Oh, I can show you. I know this campus like the back of my hand. I'm also available to show you around town, introduce you to the right people." "Actually," Connor interrupted smoothly, his eyes still on me, "I was hoping Riley might have time. She seems like someone who actually understands the academic side of things, which is what I'm here for." My heart hammered in my chest. Was this really happening? I have about 30 minutes before my next class. Perfect. Connor gestured toward the cafeteria exit. "Shall we?" As we walked away, I could feel Peyton's murderous glare burning into my back. I could hear her furious whisper to her friends, "Who does he think he is? And her? God, she probably doesn't even know how to act around someone with actual class." The October air was crisp as Connor and I stepped outside. He walked beside me with an easy grace, seemingly unbothered by my threadbare jacket or scuffed shoes. "Thank you," I said quietly. "You didn't have to do that back there." "Do what?" "Ask for directions?" His tone was light, but his eyes held understanding. "Look, I've seen enough bullying to recognize it. Nobody deserves to be treated like that." We walked in comfortable silence for a moment before he spoke again. "So, are you actually going to help me find the administration building, or were you just being polite?" I actually laughed for the first time in weeks. "It's this way. Follow me." What I didn't know then, couldn't have possibly known, was that Connor Westfield wasn't just another transfer student. He wasn't just another wealthy kid slumming it at a community college for reasons unknown. As we walked across that campus, my worn sneakers crunching on fallen leaves beside his expensive leather shoes, I had no idea that my life was about to transform in ways that would make Peyton Ashford's worst nightmares look like pleasant dreams. I didn't know that within 6 months, my face would be on the cover of every major magazine in the country. I didn't know that my wedding would crash social media platforms and generate more internet traffic than royal weddings in Europe. I didn't know that the people who'd called me not marriage material would be desperately trying to claim they'd always been my friends. All I knew in that moment was that someone had stood up for me. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel completely alone. But the universe has a funny way of rewarding patience and punishing cruelty. Peyton Ashford was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Connor started appearing everywhere after that day. Not in a creepy, stalking way. More like he'd genuinely decided Henderson Community College was worth his time, despite clearly being able to afford any Ivy League school in the country. He'd sit in the library where I studied, show up at the campus coffee shop during my breaks, and somehow always ended up in discussions that challenged everything I thought I knew. "Your analysis of Eliot's feminist themes is fascinating," he said one afternoon, 2 weeks after we'd met. We were sitting in the library's quiet section, surrounded by towers of books. "But you're holding back. I can tell you have stronger opinions than what you wrote in this essay." I stared at the paper he'd just read, my latest assignment that Professor Chen had given an A-. "What do you mean?" "This." He pointed to a paragraph. "You wrote that Dorothea's choices were somewhat limited by societal expectations. That's diplomatic and safe. But what you really think is that she was trapped in a cage of expectations that suffocated her potential, isn't it?" Heat crept up my neck. He was right. I'd learned to water down my opinions, to make myself smaller in academic spaces where I already felt like an outsider. "How did you—" "Because I've watched you in class. When Professor Chen asks questions, you have answers. But you wait to see what everyone else says first, then you dilute your response to match the room's temperature." Connor leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. Why? No one had ever seen me that clearly before. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Because girls like me don't get to have loud opinions. We're supposed to be grateful we're even in the room. That's bullshit. His bluntness startled me. "Your insights are sharper than half the trust fund babies coasting through their degrees. You belong in every room you enter, Riley. The sooner you believe that, the sooner everyone else will too." Our study sessions became regular occurrences. Connor had a way of pulling thoughts out of me that I didn't even know I had. He challenged me on everything, literature, philosophy, politics, but never made me feel stupid for my perspectives. Instead, he treated my ideas like they mattered, like I mattered. "Where did you go to school before this?" I asked one evening as we packed up our books. November had arrived with its early darkness, and the library was nearly empty. Something flickered across his face. Hesitation, maybe calculation. "Boarding school on the East Coast. I took some time off to figure out what I actually wanted to study rather than what was expected of me." A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. "That must be nice," I said without thinking. "Having the luxury to take time off. You think my life is easy because I have money?" His question wasn't defensive, just curious. I zipped my backpack, considering. "Easier than mine, definitely. I'm here on scholarships that require perfect grades. I work 20 hours a week at a grocery store to help my mom with bills. I can't afford to take time off or figure things out. I have to get it right the first time." "Fair point," Connor acknowledged. "But money doesn't buy freedom from expectations. Sometimes it just makes the cage more expensive." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Emergency. Hospital. Your brother." My hands shook as I read the message. Jake, my 15-year-old brother, had been in a skateboarding accident. Possible concussion. They were at Henderson General. "I have to go," I said, shoving my phone into my pocket and standing so quickly my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "What's wrong?" Connor was on his feet immediately. "Family emergency." My voice cracked. "I didn't have a car. The bus would take 45 minutes. My mom was alone at the hospital, probably terrified, definitely unable to afford whatever bills were coming. "I'm driving you." Connor's tone left no room for argument. "You don't have to—" "Riley." He placed a hand on my shoulder, steady and grounding. "Let me help." His car was a sleek black Mercedes that probably cost more than my family's lifetime earnings. I barely noticed as we sped through Henderson's streets toward the hospital. Connor didn't ask questions, didn't make small talk. He just drove with focused efficiency while I tried not to fall apart in the passenger seat. At the hospital, he insisted on coming inside. My mother looked exhausted in the waiting room, her housekeeper's uniform still on from her shift. When she saw me, relief flooded her face. "Riley, thank God. Jake's okay. Minor concussion, no fractures." "But the insurance—" She glanced at Connor, suddenly aware of the wealthy stranger beside her daughter. "I'm sorry, I'm Margaret, Riley's mom. Connor Westfield, ma'am. I'm glad your son is all right." He shook her hand with genuine respect. No trace of the condescension wealthy people often showed working-class parents. A hospital administrator approached with paperwork and that apologetic expression that always preceded bad news. "Ms. Brennan, about the payment. I'll handle it." Connor pulled out a credit card before my mother could protest. "No," my mother said firmly. "Absolutely not. We don't accept charity. It's not charity, ma'am. It's what friends do for each other." Connor's voice was gentle but insistent. "Please let me do this." I saw my mother's pride warring with reality. The medical bills would devastate us financially. But accepting help from a stranger, a wealthy stranger, went against everything she'd taught us about standing on our own. "Mom," I said quietly. "Jake needs to come first." She closed her eyes and I saw a tear escape down her weathered cheek. "Thank you," she whispered to Connor. "I'll pay you back. Every penny." "There's no debt, Ms. Brennan, I promise." As Connor handled the paperwork, I sat with my mother in the waiting room. She studied me with those perceptive eyes that had seen through every teenage lie I'd ever attempted. "He's not just a classmate, is he?" she asked. "I don't know what he is," I admitted. "We're friends, I think. But Mom, sometimes he looks at me like—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "Like you matter," she completed. "Good. You deserve someone who sees your worth." When Jake was released 2 hours later with a bandaged head and strict rest orders, Connor drove us all home to our small apartment in the low-income section of Henderson. If he was shocked by the peeling paint, the cramped quarters, or the obvious poverty, he didn't show it. "Thank you," I told him at the door, "for everything. Riley, can I ask you something?" Connor's expression was serious in the dim porch light. "Would you have dinner with me this weekend? Not as a thank you for tonight, not as payment for anything. Just because I'd really like to spend time with you outside of libraries and hospitals." My heart stuttered. "Like a date?" "Exactly like a date." Every warning bell in my head went off. Rich boys didn't date poor girls, not seriously. This would end in heartbreak. Peyton's words echoed. "You're not marriage material." But Connor was looking at me like I was the only person in the world worth looking at. "Yes," I heard myself say. "I'd like that." His smile transformed his entire face. "Saturday at 7? Saturday at 7. As I watched him drive away, I had no idea I'd just agreed to the first date that would eventually become the most talked about love story in America. I didn't know that Connor Westfield was actually Connor Westfield III, heir to the Westfield dynasty, a family whose wealth and influence made the Rockefellers look modest. I just knew that for the first time in my life, someone saw me. Really saw me. And that was terrifying and wonderful all at once. Peyton Ashford was about to discover exactly what she'd underestimated. But that storm was still brewing on the horizon. Saturday arrived with the kind of anxiety that makes you try on every piece of clothing you own twice. My bedroom floor looked like a tornado had hit a thrift store. Nothing seemed right. Everything screamed, poor girl pretending to be something she's not. My younger sister Emma sat on my bed, watching my meltdown with 13-year-old wisdom. "You know he's already seen you in your regular clothes, right? He asked you out anyway." "That's different," I argued, holding up a navy dress I'd bought for my high school graduation. "That was school. This is a date. An actual date. With a guy who paid Jake's hospital bill without blinking," Emma pointed out. "I don't think he cares if your dress is from Target." She was right, but that didn't stop my hands from shaking as I applied the drugstore makeup I'd saved up to buy. Connor had texted me the address of the restaurant, Marcello's, an Italian place downtown that I'd only ever walked past, never imagined entering. When the doorbell rang at exactly 7, my mother beat me to it. I heard her greeting Connor, her voice carrying that protective mother tone that could intimidate gang members. "Mr. Westfield, right on time." "Please call me Connor, Ms. Brennan. Is Riley ready?" I grabbed my coat, the nicest one I owned, which wasn't saying much, and headed to the living room. Connor stood in our cramped entryway wearing a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than our monthly rent. But his face when he saw me lit up like I was wearing a ball gown instead of a 5-year-old dress. "You look beautiful," he said simply. Jake wolf whistled from the couch until Mom shot him a look. "You have her home by 11, young man." "Yes, ma'am," Connor agreed seriously. "I promise to be a perfect gentleman." The drive to Marcello's passed in a blur of nervous conversation. Connor asked about my classes, my family, my dreams, questions nobody had ever bothered to ask before. He listened like my answers actually mattered. "I want to teach," I admitted as we pulled up to the restaurant. "English literature, maybe at a community college. Help kids like me who think education isn't for people from their neighborhoods." "That's incredible," Connor said, and I could tell he meant it. The world needs more teachers who understand what their students are fighting against. Marcello's interior was everything I'd imagined. Candlelit tables, soft Italian music, waiters in pressed uniforms. The kind of place where I could feel the price tags on everything. The hostess greeted Connor by name. "Mr. Westfield, your usual table is ready." His usual table. This was his world, and I was an imposter in it. As if reading my thoughts, Connor leaned close as we sat down. "Breathe, Riley, it's just dinner. Just you and me talking like we do every day." "In libraries where I belong," I muttered. "Not places with cloth napkins and wine lists." "You belong anywhere you choose to be," Connor said firmly. "Now tell me something I don't know about you yet." The evening unfolded like a dream I was afraid to wake up from. Connor was funny, smart, and genuinely interested in everything I said. He didn't talk down to me or try to impress me with his wealth. When I accidentally knocked over my water glass, he simply moved it aside and kept talking like nothing happened. My turn to ask something, I said over dessert. Tiramisu that tasted like clouds. Why Henderson Community College? You could go anywhere. Harvard, Yale, Oxford. Why here? Connor's expression shifted, becoming guarded. Because I needed to get away from expectations. From a life that was planned out before I was born. Henderson isn't connected to my family's name, so I can just be me. Your family's name? I pressed gently. He was quiet for a long moment, studying his espresso. Riley, there's something I should tell you about who I am. Well. The voice sliced through our moment like a blade. I turned to see Peyton Ashford standing beside our table, flanked by two equally overdressed friends. Riley Brennan at Marcello's. Did you get lost on your way to McDonald's? My face burned. This was my nightmare, being exposed as an outsider in front of Connor. Peyton. Connor's voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. You should leave. Oh, Connor, sweetie, I'm just surprised to see you slumming it. Peyton's laugh was razor sharp. I mean, Riley's sweet and all, but let's be real. This is charity, right? Your good deed for the semester? Take the poor girl out, make her feel special, then go back to your real life. Something cracked inside me. Every insult, every mockery, every reminder that I wasn't good enough came flooding back. I started to stand, ready to leave with whatever dignity I had left. Connor's hand caught mine. Sit down, Riley. His eyes never left Peyton. Since you seem confused, let me clarify something. Riley is the most genuine, intelligent, remarkable woman I've ever met. This isn't charity. This isn't me slumming it. This is me being lucky enough that she said yes to dinner. Connor, you don't understand. Peyton tried again. No. You don't understand. Connor stood now, his height and presence suddenly commanding the entire restaurant. You see Riley's second-hand clothes and assume she's less than you. You see my expensive suit and assume I'm better than her. You're wrong on both counts. Riley has more substance, more character, more worth in her little finger than you've demonstrated in your entire existence. The restaurant had gone quiet. Even the background music seemed to have paused. Peyton's face cycled through shock, embarrassment, and fury. Do you have any idea who I am? Who is my father? I don't care if your father is the president, Connor replied. You're cruel, and cruelty is the most unattractive quality a person can have. Now, if you'll excuse us, Riley and I are having a private dinner. Peyton's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Her friends were already backing away, mortified. Finally, she turned and stormed out, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floor. Connor sat back down, his anger visibly cooling. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have lost my temper. Are you kidding? I breathed. That was the most amazing thing I've ever witnessed. He smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. Riley, what I was trying to say before we were interrupted, my full name is Connor Westfield III. My family owns Westfield Global Industries. We're very wealthy, very well known. The pieces clicked into place. Westfield Global Industries. I'd seen their name on buildings, in news articles about philanthropy and business deals worth billions. They weren't just rich, they were American royalty. Why didn't you tell me? The question came out smaller than I intended, because for the first time in my life, someone looked at me and saw just Connor, not the Westfield heir, not a trust fund, not a networking opportunity. Just me. His gray eyes pleaded for understanding. You treated me like a person, Riley. Do you know how rare that is? I thought about it, really thought about it. Every interaction we'd had, Connor had been genuine, kind, and present. He'd never flaunted his wealth or made me feel small. If anything, he'd consistently built me up. Does this change things? He asked quietly. Between us? I reached across the table and took his hand. You paid my brother's hospital bill. You stood up to Peyton. You see me when the rest of the world looks right through me. So no, finding out you're obscenely wealthy doesn't change anything. Except maybe now I understand why you're so good at literary analysis. Private tutors, right? Connor laughed, the tension breaking. Guilty. but you're still sharper than I am." As we left Marcello's that night, Connor's arm around my shoulders, I had no idea that Peyton was already plotting her revenge. I didn't know that our relationship would soon become national news, that photographers would camp outside my apartment, that my life was about to transform into something unrecognizable. All I knew was that Connor Westfield III had chosen me. Ordinary. Broke? Not marriage material, Riley Brennan. And that felt like magic. The real story was just beginning. Dating Connor Westfield was like stepping into an alternate reality where I was the protagonist instead of the background character. He picked me up from my grocery store shifts in his Mercedes, never once commenting on my uniform smelling like produce. We studied together at coffee shops where baristas knew his order by heart. He introduced me to art galleries and symphony performances, then listened intently when I explained why I preferred small indie bookstores and acoustic open mic nights. "You're collecting experiences," I observed one December evening as we walked through Henderson's Christmas market. Snow dusted his dark hair, and our breath made clouds in the cold air. "What do you mean?" Connor's arm was around my waist, keeping me close against the winter chill. "Everything you do, transferring to a community college, avoiding your family's spotlight, dating me. You're trying to figure out who you are without the Westfield name attached." He stopped walking, turning to face me fully. The market lights twinkled around us, and someone was selling roasted chestnuts nearby. "You see right through me, don't you? Is that a bad thing?" "It's terrifying and wonderful." He kissed my forehead. "Most people see what they want from me. You see me?" What Connor didn't mention was the growing tension with his family. His phone buzzed constantly with calls he'd silence, text messages he'd read and delete, the shadow that crossed his face when his mother's name appeared on the screen. 3 weeks after our first date, the bubble burst. I was working the evening shift at Riverside Grocery when a woman in a cream Burberry coat walked down my aisle. She was stunning, 50s, impeccably dressed, with the kind of presence that made everyone instinctively straighten their posture. She stopped in front of my register. "Riley Brennan?" Her voice was cultured, controlled, with an edge that could cut glass. "Yes?" I scanned a customer's milk, trying to maintain professionalism despite my racing heart. Something about this woman screamed danger. "I'm Victoria Westfield, Connor's mother." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We need to talk." My hands froze on the register. "Connor's mother, here, at my grocery store job. I'm working right now." I managed. "Then I'll wait." Victoria stepped aside with the patience of someone accustomed to getting what she wanted. The last 20 minutes of my shift crawled by with agonizing slowness. Victoria browsed the store with mild interest, occasionally checking her phone. When my replacement arrived, I couldn't avoid the conversation any longer. We sat in Victoria's chauffeured Bentley, because of course she had a chauffeur. The leather seats probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "My son hasn't returned home for Thanksgiving," Victoria began without preamble. "He's ignored family obligations, business meetings, and his father's attempts at contact. All because he's playing house with a girl from community college." "Playing house?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Let's be frank, Riley. You seem like a nice girl, hardworking, intelligent enough. But you're not part of Connor's world. His life involves responsibilities you cannot comprehend. Galas where a single dress costs $50,000. Business negotiations that affect thousands of employees. Marriages that merge dynasties, not feelings." Each word was a precisely aimed arrow. "Connor and I care about each other. I'm sure you do. First love is intoxicating." Victoria's tone softened slightly, which somehow made it worse. "But Connor will be expected to take over Westfield Global within 5 years. That position requires a wife from the right background, with the right education, the right connections. Someone trained for that life since childhood. Someone like Peyton Ashford?" The name left my mouth before I could stop it. Victoria's eyebrow arched. "Peyton is from a suitable family, yes, though she has her own shortcomings. But the principle remains. Connor needs a partner who understands his world. You would be lost, ridiculed, destroyed by the pressure. I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. Has Connor told you any of this? I challenged myself. Connor is 22 and rebelling against expectations. It's natural, but eventually he'll return to reality. The question is how much damage occurs before then. Victoria pulled out a checkbook. I'm prepared to offer you $200,000 to end this relationship cleanly. You could finish your education debt-free, help your family, and start fresh. The number was staggering, life-changing. It would solve every financial problem my family had ever faced. You're trying to buy me off? Anger replaced shock. I'm offering you a practical solution that benefits everyone. Connor returns to his life, you get resources to build yours. No drama, no heartbreak? No. The word came out forcefully. I'm not interested in your money, Mrs. Westfield. If Connor wants to end things, he can tell me himself. But I won't disappear just because you think I'm not good enough. Victoria studied me with new interest, like I was a puzzle she'd miscalculated. You genuinely care for him. I love him. The admission surprised me as much as it did her. And maybe I'm not from your world, but I make Connor happy. I see him, not just the Westfield heir. Doesn't that count for something? In fairy tales, perhaps. Victoria's expression remained impassive. In reality, love isn't enough. The pressures of our world would crush what you have together. I've seen it happen dozens of times. She handed me a business card anyway. When you realize I'm right, and you will, call this number. The offer stands. I left the Bentley shaking with anger and fear. Victoria's words echoed in my mind all the way home. Was I being selfish? Would Connor's life be better without me dragging him down? Connor was waiting at my apartment when I arrived, sitting on the front steps in the cold. He stood immediately when he saw me. My mother came to see you. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Because she told me she planned to. Connor's jaw was tight. I'm sorry, Riley, I should have warned you. But I hoped she wouldn't actually go through with it. She offered me money to leave you. I watched his reaction carefully. Connor's hands clenched into fists. How much? Does it matter? It matters because it tells me how serious she is about splitting us up. He took my hands, his touch warm against my frozen fingers. What did you say? I told her no. I told her if you wanted to end things, you'd do it yourself. I searched his face. But Connor, she's not entirely wrong. Your life is so different from mine. What happens when you graduate and go back to Manhattan? When you take over the family business? When do you need someone who knows which fork to use at state dinners? Then you'll learn which fork to use, Connor said simply. Riley, I don't want someone from my world. I've dated those girls. They're interested in the Westfield name, the money, the status. You're interested in me. You challenge me to think differently. You make me want to be better than the path laid out for me. Your mother thinks I'll hold you back. My mother thinks anyone who doesn't attend her approved social functions is beneath notice. Connor cupped my face in his hands. I'm 22 years old, and for the first time in my life, I'm making my own choices. I choose you, Riley. The question is whether you choose me, knowing how complicated it's going to get. I thought about Victoria's warnings, about the world I'd be entering, about every doubt I'd ever had about my worthiness. Then I thought about Connor, how he made me laugh, how he believed in me, how he'd never once made me feel less than. I choose you, I whispered. Connor kissed me there on my apartment steps, and I knew we'd just declared war on his family's expectations. I knew things were about to get infinitely more complicated. What I didn't know was that Peyton Ashford had photographed Victoria's Bentley outside my apartment and was already spinning a narrative on social media about gold diggers targeting the Westfield heir. I didn't know that by morning. My face would be all over gossip blogs and tabloid websites. The private romance was over. The public spectacle was about to begin, and nothing would ever be simple again. I woke up to 247 missed calls and my phone vibrating so violently it had fallen off my nightstand. The digital clock read 6:47 a.m. My first coherent thought was that someone had died. Riley. Emma burst into my room without knocking, her eyes wide with panic. You need to see this. Right now! She thrust her phone in my face. The screen showed a gossip website called Manhattan Elite Insider, and there, in high definition, was a photo of me, leaving my grocery store shift, looking exhausted in my uniform with the headline, Westfield Heir's Secret Girlfriend, Gold Digger or Genuine Love. My stomach dropped. Keep scrolling, Emma urged. There were more photos. Me walking to class with my worn backpack. Connor and me at the Christmas market. Victoria's Bentley parked outside our apartment building with the caption, Westfield matriarch attempts damage control, pays off son's inappropriate girlfriend? The article was vicious. It detailed my family's financial struggles, my grocery store job, my community college education, and painted me as a calculating social climber who'd trapped a naive billionaire heir. The comments section was even worse. She's clearly using him for money. Pathetic. That outfit screams desperate. He could do so much better. I give it 3 months before she's pregnant and demanding child support. My phone rang again. Connor's name flashing on the screen. I answered with shaking hands. Riley, don't read the comments. Promise me you won't read them. His voice was strained, angry in a way I'd never heard directed near me. Too late. I felt numb. Connor, they know where I work. Where I live. They have photos of my family. I know. I'm handling it. My lawyer is already drafting cease and desist orders. Papers rustled in the background. I'm coming to get you. Pack a bag. You're not safe at your apartment right now. What do you mean not safe? As if in answer, car doors slammed outside. I ran to the window and pulled back the curtain. 3 news vans were parked on our street, and photographers were setting up cameras pointed directly at our building. Oh my God, I breathed. Pack. Now. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Connor hung up. The next 2 hours were a blur of chaos. Connor arrived with a security team that escorted me through a crowd of shouting reporters. Microphones were shoved in my face, questions hurled like accusations. Riley, are you pregnant with Connor Westfield's baby? How much money have you taken from the Westfield family? Is it true you're a college dropout? Connor's arm was iron around me as we pushed through to his car. Once inside, he immediately raised the privacy partition between us and the driver. I'm so sorry, he said, his jaw clenched. I should have anticipated this. Should have protected you better. How did they find out? My voice sounded distant, disconnected. Peyton Ashford posted photos on social media with hashtags linking to my family. It snowballed from there. Connor pulled out his phone, showing me Peyton's Instagram. She'd posted the photo of Victoria's Bentley with the caption, When you have to buy off the help. All Westfield drama, know your place, old money problems. The post had 43,000 likes and thousands of comments speculating about Connor's mystery girlfriend. I'll destroy her, Connor said coldly. I'll sue her into bankruptcy. Don't. The word came out firmer than I felt. That's what she wants, to matter enough that you'd expend energy on her. Let her have her moment. Connor studied me with something like awe. How are you this calm? I wasn't calm. I was terrified, humiliated, and fighting the urge to vomit. But I'd spent my whole life being underestimated, mocked, and dismissed. This was just a bigger stage. Where are we going? I asked instead of answering. Somewhere safe. Where we can figure out our next move. Connor took me to a penthouse apartment in downtown Henderson that I didn't even know existed. One of several properties his family owned across the country. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the furniture probably cost more than my entire apartment building. Make yourself comfortable, Connor said, tossing his keys on a marble counter. We'll stay here until things calm down. Things won't calm down, Connor. I stood in the middle of the living room, feeling completely out of place. This is your life now. Our life. There's no going back to normal. He crossed to me, taking my hands. Then we'll figure out a new normal, together. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages. Most were from numbers I didn't recognize. Reporters requesting interviews, strangers sending hate messages, opportunists offering to tell my story for a price. But then I saw one from an unknown number that made my blood run cold. You ruined everything. He was supposed to be mine. You're going to regret stealing what doesn't belong to trash like you. Connor, I showed him the message. Is this Peyton? His expression darkened. I'm forwarding this to my security team. She's crossed a line. Over the next week, the media frenzy intensified. Reporters tracked down my mother at work, ambushed Jake at school, and turned our lives into a circus. My professors called asking if I'd be continuing classes. My grocery store manager suggested I take some time off until the attention died down. Code for, "You're fired." The internet is divided into camps. Some defended me as a real girl who'd captured a billionaire's heart. Others eviscerated me as a gold-digging opportunist. Think pieces were written about class divides, wealth inequality, and modern Cinderella stories. My face was everywhere, and I had zero control over the narrative. "We need to make a statement," Connor's publicist Diane suggested during an emergency meeting at the penthouse. She was a sharp woman in her 40s who'd handled PR crises for everyone from politicians to celebrities. Control the story before it controls you. What kind of statement? I asked. An interview. A major publication. You and Connor together, telling your story in your own words. Diane pulled up her tablet. I've had offers from Vogue, Vanity Fair, People magazine, and the New York Times. You pick the venue. I don't want to do an interview, I said immediately. I don't want to be famous. I just want to be left alone. That ship has sailed, sweetheart. Diane's tone was kind but firm. Right now, you're a mystery, and people fill mysteries with their worst assumptions. You need to humanize yourself, show them who you really are. She's right, Connor added reluctantly. I hate it, but she's right. If we stay silent, the tabloids write our story for us. I thought about my mother, harassed at work. About Jake, whose skateboarding accident photos had been dug up and published with speculation about insurance fraud. About Emma, who'd deleted all her social media accounts after being bullied by strangers. Fine, I agreed. But I'm not changing who I am to make people comfortable. If they want my story, they get the real one. Diane smiled. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. Now let's talk about Vanity Fair. The interview was scheduled for 2 weeks later, which gave the internet plenty of time to continue dissecting my life. Someone found my high school yearbook photos and mocked my braces and acne. Another person started a thread analyzing every outfit I'd ever worn in the paparazzi photos, concluding I had no sense of style. A particularly cruel meme compared me to Connor's ex-girlfriends, all models and socialites, with the caption, "Which one doesn't belong?" Through it all, Connor remained steadfast. He posted a single photo on his previously dormant Instagram account, a picture of our hands intertwined with the caption, "Real recognizes real." The rest is just noise. It got 2.3 million likes in 6 hours. Peyton's response was immediate. She posted a throwback photo of her and Connor at some charity gala from years ago before he'd gone to Henderson. The caption read, "Some connections are timeless. Throwback, Thursday. Real royalty." She's delusional, Connor muttered, staring at his phone. But the damage was done. The narrative now included speculation about Connor and Peyton's history, about whether I was just a phase, about when he'd inevitably return to his world. The night before the Vanity Fair interview, I stood at the penthouse windows watching the city lights below. Connor came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Having second thoughts?" he asked quietly. "About you?" "Never." I leaned back against him. "About whether I'm strong enough for this life?" "Every single day." "You're the strongest person I know, Riley Brennan." He kissed my temple. "Tomorrow, we will tell them who you really are. And they're going to love you, or at least respect you. Either way, they won't be able to dismiss you." I wanted to believe him. But as I stared at my reflection in the dark glass, ordinary Riley Brennan from a one-bedroom apartment, now living in a penthouse and preparing for a national interview, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of a cliff. The Vanity Fair interview would either give me wings or send me plummeting. Tomorrow, the world will find out which. The Vanity Fair photographer's studio was intimidating. All white walls, expensive equipment, and a crew of people whose job was to make me look like I belonged in Connor's world. A makeup artist named Marcus worked on my face while a stylist named Sophia held up designer dresses that cost more than my family's car. "We're thinking elegant but approachable," Sophia explained, showing me a cream-colored dress by some designer I'd never heard of. "You want to look polished without seeming like you're trying too hard. So basically, perform naturally wealthy," I said, unable to keep the sarcasm out of my voice. Marcus paused mid-brush, then laughed. "Oh, I like you. Most people we work with take this stuff deadly seriously. You're refreshing." The journalist, Catherine Mills, was a veteran reporter known for her penetrating interviews. She'd made politicians cry and celebrities storm out. As she settled into the chair across from Connor and me, her sharp eyes assessed everything. "Let's start with the obvious question," Catherine began, her recorder running. "Riley, how do you respond to accusations that you're a gold digger pursuing Connor for his money?" Connor started to interrupt, but I touched his arm gently. This was my story to tell. "I'd say those accusations come from people who can't imagine that someone might value connection over capital," I answered carefully. "I met Connor as a classmate, not as a Westfield. I fell in love with someone who challenged me intellectually, who made me laugh, who saw me as a person rather than a statistic." The money was actually a complication, not an attraction. A complication? How? Because suddenly our private relationship became public property. Because people I've never met feel entitled to opinions about my character, my intentions, my worth as a human being. I met Catherine's eyes directly. I didn't grow up with money, and I won't apologize for that. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I worked to help support my siblings. Poverty isn't a moral failing, it's a circumstance. But apparently, in some circles, it disqualifies you from genuine human emotion. Catherine's eyebrow raised slightly. "A good sign," Connor had said. She was interested. "Connor, your mother reportedly offered Riley money to end the relationship. Can you confirm that?" Connor's jaw tightened. "My mother operates from a place of protection, not malice. She believes she's shielding me from a mistake. But she's wrong. Riley isn't a mistake. She's the best decision I've ever made. Even though dating her has made you tabloid fodder, cost you privacy, potentially damage your family relationships? Those things were damaged long before Riley entered my life," Connor said firmly. "My family has always valued reputation over authenticity, status over substance. Riley represents everything they claim to admire: hard work, intelligence, determination. But because she doesn't come wrapped in the right pedigree, they can't see it. That's their failure, not hers." Catherine scribbled notes, then turned back to me. "Riley, there's significant social media speculation about your education, your job, your background. Does the scrutiny bother you?" "Of course it bothers me. I refuse to pretend otherwise. Having strangers dissect your life, mock your family, judge your every choice, it's dehumanizing. But it's also revealing. The people attacking me aren't actually concerned about Connor's well-being. They're uncomfortable with class mobility, with the idea that love might cross economic boundaries. I disrupt their comfortable narrative about how the world should work." "That's quite an analysis for a 21-year-old. Being poor gives you a crash course in social dynamics," I replied. "You learn quickly how people treat you differently based on your address, your clothes, your prospects." Connor's world just made those dynamics more explicit and more public. The interview continued for 2 hours. Catherine asked about our first date, about Connor's decision to attend community college, about my aspirations for the future. She was thorough but fair, never going for cheap shots or gotcha moments. During a break, Sophia adjusted my dress while Marcus touched up my makeup for photos. Connor squeezed my hand. "You're doing amazing," he whispered. "I feel like I'm on trial," I admitted. "You're not on trial. You're telling the truth. There's a difference." The photo shoot was surreal. The photographer positioned Connor and me in various poses. Him in a Tom Ford suit, me in that cream designer dress, both of us trying to look natural while being anything but. At one point, Connor made a ridiculous face when the photographer wasn't looking, and I burst out laughing. The photographer captured it. "That's the one," she declared. "That right there. That's real." 3 weeks later, the issue hit newsstands with that photo on the cover. Connor and me laughing, my hand on his chest, his eyes only on me. The headline read, "Love Across the Divide, Connor Westfield and Riley Brennan on Class Romance and Rewriting the Rules." The article was remarkable. Catherine had captured our story with nuance and depth, including quotes that humanized both of us. She'd also done her own research, interviewing my professors who praised my academic abilities, former coworkers who vouched for my character, even classmates who described Connor as the most down-to-earth rich guy you'll ever meet. The public response was overwhelming. Suddenly, my social media, which I'd reluctantly created at Diane's insistence, exploded with supportive messages. Women shared their own stories of being judged for their backgrounds. Think pieces praised the interview for addressing wealth inequality and social prejudice. Fashion blogs analyzed my accessible elegance. Book clubs wanted to know what I was reading. Even some critics softened. The narrative shifted from gold digger seducing naive heir to modern romance challenging outdated class systems. Not everyone was convinced, of course. Peyton posted a long Instagram story dissecting the interview, claiming it was staged propaganda and that the real story was much uglier. Victoria Westfield released a terse statement through her publicist. The Westfield family maintains privacy regarding personal matters and has no comment on recent media speculation. But Connor's father reached out, a surprising development. Harrison Westfield III requested a private dinner to meet me properly. Connor was skeptical. "My father never does anything without a strategic purpose," he warned as we drove to the five-star restaurant Harrison had selected. "Be prepared for anything." Harrison Westfield was an older, more refined version of Connor. Silver hair, commanding presence, eyes that assessed everything. His handshake was firm, his smile calculated. "Riley, thank you for joining us." He gestured to the private dining room he'd reserved. "I've been curious to meet the woman who captured my son's attention so completely." Dinner was a chess match. Harrison asked probing questions disguised as polite conversation. Where did I see myself in 5 years? How did I feel about the responsibilities that came with the Westfield name? Had I considered the impact on Connor's future business endeavors? "Mr. Westfield, I appreciate your concerns," I said during the main course, setting down my fork. "But I'm not auditioning for a role in your family. I'm in love with your son. If that complicates your succession plans or board meetings, that's something you and Connor need to discuss. But my feelings for him aren't contingent on your approval." Silence fell over the table. Connor looked torn between pride and anxiety. Harrison studied me with renewed interest. Then he laughed. A genuine, surprised laugh. "Victoria said you were stubborn. I didn't realize she meant formidable." "Is there a difference?" I asked. "In our world." "A significant one." Harrison leaned back in his chair. "Riley, I didn't build a multi-billion-dollar empire by dismissing people who challenge me. You're right. Your relationship with Connor isn't about my approval. But it is about understanding what you're entering. The Westfield name comes with obligations, scrutiny, and pressures that would break most people." "Then it's good I'm not like most people." Harrison's smile was cryptic. "Indeed. Connor, I believe you've chosen interestingly." It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't outright opposition either. As we left the restaurant, Connor was quiet. "What are you thinking?" I asked. "That you just did something nobody has managed in years. You impressed my father. He respects strength and you didn't back down." Connor pulled me close. "You continue to amaze me, Riley Brennan." The Vanity Fair article marked a turning point. Public perception shifted. Invitations arrived, legitimate ones, not opportunistic or mocking. A foundation working on educational access asked me to speak at their gala. A women's college wanted me to participate in a panel discussion about breaking social barriers. I was becoming something I'd never intended. A symbol. "You could do a lot of good with this platform," Diane suggested during one of our strategy meetings. "Turn the attention into advocacy for causes you care about." "I just wanted to date my boyfriend without being crucified online," I protested. "Well, that ship has sailed, crashed, and been salvaged for reality TV rights," Diane replied bluntly. So now you can either let the narrative continue without you, or you can shape it into something meaningful. She was right, of course. If I was going to be scrutinized anyway, I might as well use it for something beyond tabloid entertainment. But none of us anticipated what would come next. Connor's proposal, the wedding that would break the internet, and Peyton's final, desperate attempt to destroy everything we'd built. The real drama was still ahead. Connor proposed on the anniversary of our first date, and true to form, he made it impossibly perfect while remaining authentically us. No flashy public spectacle, no orchestrated social media moment, just the two of us back at Marcello's, the restaurant where Peyton had tried to humiliate me and Connor had defended me instead. "Remember sitting right here a year ago?" Connor asked as dessert arrived. "Tiramisu again." "You were terrified of the cloth napkins." "I was terrified of everything," I admitted. "Terrified you'd realize I didn't belong in your world." "And now?" He reached across the table, taking my hand. "Now I know I don't belong in your world. I belong with you." "There's a difference." Connor smiled that smile that still made my heart skip, then slid out of his chair and onto one knee. The restaurant went silent. Several diners pulled out their phones. "Riley Brennan, you are the bravest, smartest, most extraordinary person I've ever met. You challenged everything I thought I knew about life, about love, about what actually matters. You stood up to my mother, handled media scrutiny that would break most people, and never once lost sight of who you are." He pulled out a velvet box, opening it to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond that caught the candlelight. "I don't want to navigate this complicated, beautiful, messy life with anyone else. Will you marry me?" Through tears, I managed one word. "Yes." The restaurant erupted in applause. By the time we left, the proposal video was already trending on Twitter. Westfield engagement hit #1 worldwide within 2 hours. Planning a wedding as the most talked-about couple in America was like planning a military operation. Every decision became public debate. Every vendor had to sign ironclad NDAs. Security concerns meant we couldn't use traditional venues. And the guest list turned into a political minefield. "Your mother sent back her RSVP," I told Connor 6 months into planning. "She's not coming." Connor's expression hardened. "She's still punishing us for not breaking up on command." "Your father is coming, though. And your sister." Connor's younger sister, Madison, had become an unexpected ally, texting me dress ideas and offering moral support. That's something. What Victoria didn't know was that her rejection had freed us to plan the wedding we actually wanted, not the society event she would have demanded, but a celebration that honored both our worlds. We chose a boutique vineyard in Napa Valley, elegant enough for the Westfield name, intimate enough to feel personal. I insisted on including my community, my mother as mother of the bride, obviously, but also my professors, co-workers, and Henderson friends. Connor invited his genuine friends rather than social obligation contacts. Peyton, obviously, was not invited, which didn't stop her from trying to crash the preparations. 2 weeks before the wedding, Diane called in a panic. "Peyton Ashford is shopping a tell-all interview to tabloids. She claims to have explosive revelations about Connor's past and your relationship." My stomach dropped. "What kind of revelations?" "She's alleging that Connor had a relationship with her while dating you. That he promised to break up with you and marry her instead. That the whole thing with you was a rebellious phase." "That's completely false," Connor said furiously when I told him. We were doing the final venue walkthrough, but he immediately pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my lawyers. We'll bury her in litigation." "Wait." I grabbed his arm. "Don't." "Riley, she's trying to destroy your reputation right before our wedding." "Exactly. Right before our wedding, which means anything we do to respond becomes part of the story, distracts from what actually matters, and gives her exactly the attention she's desperate for." I took a breath, thinking strategically. Let her publish whatever lies she wants. We'll respond with the truth, with our wedding, with photos of genuine love that no tabloid interview can compete with. Diane looked impressed. That's remarkably mature. Also strategically brilliant. Fighting with her in the press makes you look defensive. Ignoring her makes her look desperate. Connor studied me with that expression of wonder I'd never gotten used to. How are you always the smartest person in the room? Because I've been underestimated my entire life, I replied. I know how to play the long game. Peyton's interview was published 5 days before the wedding. It was exactly as pathetic as expected. Poorly substantiated claims, bitter accusations, and barely disguised jealousy dressed up as concern. A few gossip blogs picked it up, but most major outlets ignored it as unreliable. The wedding day arrived with perfect California weather. My mother helped me into my dress, a custom gown by a designer who'd offered their services after reading the Vanity Fair article. It was elegant without being ostentatious, expensive but not obscenely so. You look like a princess, Emma breathed, her eyes wide. I look like me, I corrected gently. Just the most dressed-up version. Jake knocked on the bridal suite door, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. Riley, there's someone here who wants to see you. Says it's important, my heart sank. If Peyton had actually shown up to cause a scene, but it wasn't Peyton. It was Victoria Westfield. Connor's mother stood in the hallway looking smaller than I remembered, her perfect composure showing cracks. May I have a moment? I nodded to my family to give us privacy, though Emma looked ready to physically fight anyone who upset me. I'm not here to stop the wedding, Victoria said quietly. I'm here to apologize. Of all the things I'd expected, that wasn't one of them. I've spent the past year convinced you were wrong for my son. Wrong background, wrong preparation, wrong everything. Victoria's voice was steady, but her eyes were vulnerable. Then I watched the Vanity Fair interview. Not just the edited version everyone saw. Diane sent me the full transcript. And I realized something I'd been too proud to admit. She paused, collecting herself. You love Connor the way I loved his father when we first married? Before obligations and society expectations turned our relationship into a business partnership. You see him, not the Westfield heir. You challenge him to be better rather than managing his image. You're everything I was before I let this world change me. Victoria's eyes glistened. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I was wrong. About you, about what Connor needs, about what constitutes being marriage material. My throat tightened with unexpected emotion. Mrs. Westfield, the wedding starts in an hour. I won't intrude if you'd prefer I leave. But if you'd allow me to attend, to bear witness to my son marrying a remarkable woman, I would be honored. I thought about all the cruelty, the bribery attempt, the rejection. Then I thought about Connor's face when he talked about his family, the hurt behind his anger, the hope he tried to hide. Front row, left side, I said. Next to your husband and daughter. Victoria's composure finally cracked. She embraced me briefly but genuinely. Thank you. And Riley? Welcome to the family. The ceremony was magical. 200 guests filled the vineyard as I walked down the aisle on my mother's arm, both of us crying happy tears. Connor stood at the altar looking like every dream I'd never dared to have, his eyes only on me. We'd written our own vows. Mine included, you saw me when I was invisible. You valued me when I felt worthless. You stood by me when it would have been easier to walk away. I promise to do the same for you, every day, for the rest of our lives. Connor's voice was thick with emotion during his. You taught me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars or dynasties. It's measured in authenticity, courage, and love. You're the richest person I know, Riley Brennan, and I'm the luckiest man alive. When we kissed as husband and wife, the cheers were deafening. The reception was a perfect blend of elegance and joy. My grocery store manager gave a toast about my work ethic. Madison told embarrassing stories about Connor's childhood. My mother danced with Harrison Westfield while he apologized for his family's initial treatment of us. Even Victoria smiled genuinely as she watched Connor and me cut the cake. But the real internet explosion came from the professional photos. Our photographer had captured everything. My laugh during the ceremony, Connor's tears during my vows, the moment we were pronounced married. But the photo that went viral was simpler. Connor and me during our first dance, foreheads touching, eyes closed, completely lost in each other. The caption was just our names and the date. Within an hour of being posted on our official wedding Instagram account, the photo crashed the platform. Servers couldn't handle the traffic. It was reposted millions of times across every social media platform. News outlets worldwide ran stories. The wedding that broke the internet became the universal headline. Westfield wedding trended globally for 3 days straight. The photos generated more engagement than any celebrity wedding in history. Fashion magazines analyzed every detail. Romance bloggers declared us relationship goals. Even people who'd criticized me before admitted the wedding was breathtakingly beautiful. And Peyton? Her tell-all interview was buried under the avalanche of genuine love and celebration. Her social media became a ghost town as former supporters unfollowed in droves. She'd wanted to destroy our happiness, but ended up revealing her own bitterness instead. 3 weeks after the wedding, I received an unexpected message on Instagram. It was from a young girl in Texas. "I'm from a poor family, and everyone tells me I can't dream big. But seeing your story made me believe that where you start doesn't determine where you finish. Thank you for showing me that love and authenticity matter more than money." I showed Connor the message, tears in my eyes. "You changed the narrative," he said softly. "Not just for us, but for everyone who's ever been told they're not good enough." "We changed it," I corrected. "Together." 6 months into marriage, I started a foundation focused on educational access for low-income students. Connor used his business platform to advocate for economic mobility and class equity. We bought a home in Henderson, not a mansion, but a comfortable house where we could stay connected to our roots. Victoria became an unexpected ally, using her social influence to support our foundation. Harrison offered business mentorship. Madison and I became genuine friends. As for the people who'd mocked me, called me not marriage material, and insisted I didn't belong, most apologized eventually. Some genuinely, others opportunistically. A few never acknowledged their cruelty at all. But here's what I learned through all of it. Marriage material isn't about your bank account, your pedigree, or your connections. It's about character, commitment, and choosing someone who sees your worth even when the world doesn't. Connor and I built a life that honored both our backgrounds, his wealth and privilege, my struggle and determination. We used our platform for good, loved each other fiercely, and never forgot where we came from. So to anyone who's ever been told they're not good enough, not the right fit, not marriage material, don't let someone else's limited imagination define your worth. The right person will see you clearly, love you completely, and stand beside you while you prove everyone wrong. And when that happens, trust me, it's better than any fairy tale. My name is Riley Westfield, and this is how a girl from a one-bedroom apartment married American royalty and lived to tell the tale. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.